Hello everyone, myself Dr. Lokesh, Medical Scientist E at National Institute of Epidemiology, Chennai. I am here to present a topic on the additional information that one need to submit to the publishing authorities while the submission of your manuscript for review. Let us start with the covering letter. Covering letter is a brief document that one need to submit to the publishing authorities, which basically should be a one-page document under 3 or 4 paragraphs, which should reflect the novelty of your study, usefulness of your research to the scientific community. It also helps you to say why the research will be of interest to the publishing authorities, and the covering letter also allows you to thank the journal for considering your article for review. So, the classical covering letter consists of a one-page document under 3 or 4 paragraphs. The first paragraph basically should contain the running title, and you need to state that you are willing to submit your paper to the journal authority. As we all know, nowadays the publishing authorities may be having multiple journals under a same umbrella. So, you need to choose the specific journal and list out the name while submission of your manuscript. The second paragraph should reflect the novelty of your study, and it should describe in brief the results and their clinical or a community importance. And you also need to mention why that your research will be of interest to this particular journal to which you are going to submit. The third paragraph, you need to disclose whether a related publication has been done in the past or under review in some other journal. And you also need to disclose whether the abstract of your paper has been published in any conference proceedings. You need to also disclose your copyright permission and also request for inclusion or exclusion of the suggested reviewers. Finally, thank the journal for considering your paper and end by saying that you look forward to hearing from them soon. Once you are done with the covering page, we move on to the title page. Again, this should be a one-page document which basically reflects the details of authors and their affiliation. All the authors, in the order in which you are going to quote, need to be disclosing their correct name under this particular section. The order that you mention in this title page should be the same that you mention in the copyright transfer form also. The name that you mention here in this title page would be the same pattern in which it gets reflected in the journal once it gets published. And individual authors' affiliation with detailed address is a must. Their individual qualification and the current position is a must. The corresponding author's mailing address in detail, the telephonic number and email ID should be included. The place where the study was conducted need to be mentioned here, and one also need to mention the total number of tables and figures that is included in the manuscript, and you need to again mention your title, keywords and the type of article. You need to mention whether it's going to be a case report or a case series or original article or a review article or a short communication. You need to mention at the level of article type, and if it's an original article, you may have to attach the abstract. So, once you are done with the title page, we move on to the authors and their affiliations. Authors do carry a lot of responsibilities, the professional and ethical responsibility towards the conduct of your research, as well as you also hold a lot of responsibilities during the manuscript preparation and submission to the journal authorities. The authors need to defend their paper. They need to be solely taking the responsibility of the data and its interpretation. And one need to basically remember what you mean by authorship. We do consider the ICMJE recommendations, for which one need to contribute intellectually in the study design, acquisition of data, analysis and interpretation of the data, and the author need to also contribute for drafting the article or revising it critically for intellectual content, not just a minor editing work. And finally, all the authors need to be present for the final approval of version that is to be considered for the journal authorities for publication. These are certain elements that contribute to authorship. Again, to mention, a person should have done a significant intellectual contribution, creative contribution, and one has to get actively involved in development of methodologies, data acquisition, analysis and interpretation. We do come across certain conditions wherein we do get a lot of support from various people who do not fulfill the criteria of authorship, and these are the people who need to be acknowledged. Commonly we come across this broad category as people who do not fulfill the criteria for being an author, being the head of the department, a person one who has helped in collecting the data, doing a basic technical analysis work, the institution or organization which provides the laboratory space or instruments, funding agencies, clinicians who are involved in caring of patients, individuals who are involved in collecting specimens, and those who are engaged in routine technical work, those who had helped in editing and minor assistants. All these group of people, they do not fulfill the criteria for being an author, and in an ideal setup, one need to define the authorship as a team. One need to describe the contribution made by each and every author. The sequence of authorship is basically a joint decision, and one need to get approval from all before you submit your paper for a publishing authority. In an ideal scenario, the authorship has to be discussed before the study starts, and it should include only those who are involved in all parts of the criteria that I mentioned under ICMJE, and the sequence of authorship need to be finalized. One can arrive at a consensus. The conflicts which arise out of authorship can be prevented or resolved, and one need to have transparency throughout the conduct of the study as well as while drafting the article. So, define the authorship early, use clear and transparent rules, specify the contributions, and one can also use departmental or institutional criteria. Do not give a gift authorship. Similarly, do not accept to be a gift author. Do not let it to be one person decision when multiple authors are involved. The primary author is the one who gets involved in submission of the manuscript, and he will be available throughout the process of manuscript review. He will be the sole person taking care of replying to the journal authorities, and he informs all the authors on the study progress or the review progress, and he understands the work that is being contributed by all the authors. The secondary authors will defend the content and will also agree for the conclusions and the interpretation that is drawn. The sequence of author. The first author is a person one who makes a major contribution, one who drafts the first version of the manuscript. Then the subsequent authorship depends on the work that they have contributed. At times it may be based on the alphabetical order, or it may be on turns, whereas any author during their initial career would prefer to take up the first authorship or a second authorship, but as they become a senior researcher with multiple publications, so they would rather encourage their junior faculty members or researchers to come up. So they may permit their junior research fellows to take up the first or second authorship, and the senior researcher may take up the last authorship. All those individuals who do not fulfill the criteria of being an author need to be acknowledged under the acknowledgement section. All those who have helped in the work at some stage, even for the individuals whom you are going to include in acknowledgement section, you need to get their written consent. The classical examples for those who need to be acknowledged are those who provide a technical help. The institution or organization which provides you the space, equipment and infrastructure for conducting the study, those who had helped you in writing assistance, department heads for their support, those who are involved in data collection, and funding agencies for providing the financial or material help. Statisticians, those who are involved starting from the conception of the study, involved in creating the study design, data collection, analysis and interpretation of data. In that particular situation, a statistician can be given a authorship. If they are involved only in analysis part, if they do not fulfill the other criteria, they can be acknowledged. Coming on to the affiliation, affiliation basically means the institute that each author belongs to, the institute where the research was conducted. If there is a change in the affiliation after the completion of study, the new affiliation can be acknowledged, and one need to provide the full postal address of each affiliation including the country name. After this particular category, we move on to the author's contribution, wherein each and every author, in what way they have contributed to the study conduct, need to be put under the following headings. Authors who helped in conception of the study, designing the study, those who helped in data collection, data analysis and interpretation, drafting the article, and those who are involved in critical revision of the article, and finally all the authors need to be present to approve the final version of the document which is going to be submitted for publication. Conflict of interest can occur at any stage, starting from conception of the study, during the process of data collection, recruitment, and even while analyzing the study results and while publication. The conflicts can occur, which can be either a potential conflict which may alter the study outcome. When it comes to this manuscript submission, authors must be truthful and they must declare if the article has been published in some other language during the time of submission. And authors must disclose if some part of the work has already been published or under consideration elsewhere. When you are submitting an article, please make sure that you submit to only one journal, and until unless you get a final note on that your article is accepted or rejected, do not submit your article to multiple journals at same time. If the research submitted is a dissertation, then the authors need to disclose who is the primary researcher and who is the guide or a supervisor. And one need to disclose all the relations or interests that could influence or bias the work, and it is the corresponding author who could collect the conflict of interest disclosure form from all the authors, and a summary statement in a separate section can be included before the reference list. And if no conflict exists, then the author may have to declare that the authors have no conflict of interest. Under the category of funding, one need to include the funding agencies or the organizations and the grant received, and one need to disclose that the contents are solely the responsibility of the author and do not necessarily represent the official views of the funding agencies. And if research received no specific grants, then that need to be mentioned. Many journals, they do ask for suggested reviewers. Peer review is one of the most time consuming and challenging work during the process of editorial review of your manuscript. You need to find the scholars who might be interested to review your work. The best way of identifying this is that you need to go to the reference list, the publications and the authors whom you had cited would be the ideal person from the area in which you had worked on, and those are the people who would be more keen on reviewing your article. Or else you can find the list of reviewers from various online database. You can search for the reviewers database from Publon or from Web of Science or from Taylor and Francis, the list of reviewers which they have. You can also refer the editorial board of the journal where you are going to submit. You can choose reviewers from the concerned specialty with which your paper is concerned, and give a diverse list of reviewers from different organizations and from different institutions from different countries. Ensure that experts are from your field, and take your own time in identifying a thorough list of reviewers and make a suggestion. And don't suggest an expert who is known to you personally, those who work at same institution, reviewers from same country you can best avoid, and do not recommend reviewers who have a real or perceived conflict of interest. Article processing charge is the fee that an author need to pay to the journal authorities for processing their article, and this money generally would be used for providing the online softwares for the editors, also provide an online platform for the authors to submit their manuscript, also to pay honorarium for the editorial board members. So, in order to request for APC waiver, one need to thoroughly read the journal guidelines, check whether they have any specific requirement for providing discounts on article processing charge, and you need to send an email to the editor prior to submission, and that email must include the title, name and affiliation of authors, and explain the reasons for requesting a waiver. For low income countries as well as low mid income countries, many journals they do provide concession for the authors on the article publication charges. So, be honest, be truthful, follow all the publication and ethical guidelines when you submit your article to a journal, and clearly disclose whether you had made any prior submission to any other journals, and whether a part of your article has been published either in full in a different language or a part of it is been considered for publication in the past. So, with this I conclude my talk. Thank you.